Now, many of you already know that for Q4, NIO sold over 50,000, in fact 50,045 cars, which was higher than the 49,000 which they had projected or give a guidance when they announced their Q3 earnings. Now, this, of course, ladies and gents, meant that even the revenues that they anticipated to generate for Q4, ladies and gents, it meant that it was, of course, to be updated. I mean, you will know that for Q4, NIO had projected total revenues of around 16 to 16.7 billion RMB, which meant that that revenue guidance that they had initially given with the 49,000 deliveries, it meant that we can all agree that NIO is going to easily slash that. Now, Deutsche Bank, ladies and gents, came 2 days ago and say what is it that they expect coming from NIO. And ladies and gents, I must say that the first thing that of course we saw from Deutsche Bank, what they expect to come on Tuesday before market hours or before market opens, they anticipate NIO to report or now report total revenues of around 16.8 billion RMB. This is a bit higher than their upper guidance they'd initially given during their Q3 earnings, and this is something that, of course, though Deutsche Bank increase a bit their revenues, so they simply say that revenues or an average price sales has reduced due to, of course, the so many vehicles or the kind of vehicles that they are selling, because you will know that ET5 Touring was launched or start deliveries in, of course, the second half of last year, year 6, second half of last year. And these, of course, because these are some of the cheapest models of NIO and they are the ones that were pushing a lot of sales, they are saying that these might have resulted in the average sale price coming down, which sort of like makes sense. I mean, you will know that the model like the ES6 in July broke a record of selling over 10,000 units in a month, which is something that was pretty good. Same with the ET5 Touring. ET5 Touring has been one of the models or second best selling models in NIO, and that model again, it is one of the cheapest models you can buy from the NIO cars. And that, when you add, yes, we know that the ES8 was selling also quite good of course numbers when it comes to when you look into Q4, but because the majority of the sales were coming from the these two which are the cheapest cars you can buy from NIO, it makes the average selling price per car, ladies and gents, to come a bit down. But nonetheless, we, like I said, I mean, we should not ignore the kind of sales that we were seeing from the ES8. ES8 is the most expensive model that you can buy from the NIO car. I mean, we can't talk of the ET9, of course, because NIO has not started selling that. So ES8, it is the most expensive NIO car, and ES8 was selling pretty good in Q3 or end of Q3 beginning and the Q4, which that we should also take into consideration. Yes, ET7 has not been selling good, which is something that also that we need to be factored in, but ES8 has been one of the models that when you look into the top range or when you look into the expensive NIO models, it has been selling pretty good, and I think that again might increase the average selling price. This is something that also that has to be noted. So Deutsche Bank is saying, you know what, from the between 16.1 to 16.7 billion RMB which NIO had initially projected during their Q3 earnings, they are seeing that or NIO's total revenues coming to 16.8, which it's not bad. I mean, we know that I mean, it's not many times where we see companies after issuing guidance coming and beating their own guidance which they had issued in the previous quarter when announcing the previous earnings. This is something that is pretty good for NIO. I think so many people were not expecting NIO to deliver over 50,000 deliveries, of which when we saw this in Q4, it made of course so many of the new investors to be really excited, though these deliveries that they produce in Q4 were lower than those they produce in Q3, because Q3 you'll know that NIO sold total deliveries or had total deliveries of around 55,000, which of course the 50,000 or just over 50,000 were a bit lower than those they produced in Q3. Now, one of the good things that Edison Yu's team noted going into the Q4 earnings is of course the 10% job cuts that NEO introduced or completed in November, as they are trying, or as they were trying to be more efficient. This is one of the things that of course we all know that it is expected to of course make their finances to be better, because their expenses, or they've cut off their expenses or their salary expenses by 10%, which is something that is pretty good, right? And these, ladies and gents, though the deliveries are lower than those the Q3 deliveries, Deutsche Bank sees of course the gross margins becoming better than the gross margins we saw in Q3. You will know that Q3 gross margins were around 8%, and this time in Q4 Deutsche Bank sees NEO heading back to double digits and reporting a gross margins of around 10%. This is something that is pretty good, and this 10%, ladies and gents, I mean, it is something that as new investors we've been waiting to see NEO coming back to of course double digits when we look into the gross margins, because you will know that the rest of the year, I mean Q1, you will know that gross margins for NEO for Q1 2023 were 1.5%, Q2 1%, Q3 at least it was better, 8%, and now Q4 we are to expect a 10% gross margin. And this, ladies and gents, was said by of course Deutsche Bank, which I personally also believe that we will get that. And this is mainly because of prices of lithium going down and also other improvements that NEO had been doing. So Edison Yu's team, Deutsche Bank, believes that gross margins will come at 10%, which is something that is pretty good, of course. Now, one of the things they noted, which was not good when I read this, ladies and gents, and I also discussed it a bit on the video I did yesterday, was of course Deutsche Bank coming and saying that for the guidance, NEO is going to give us a guidance that is somewhere around 25,000 vehicles, or mid 20,000 delivery guidance for Q1, which is something that is not good, because ladies and gents, in 2023 NEO saw total deliveries of over 31,000, which obviously we would want to see a continual growth from the kind of deliveries they produce in 2023. I mean, what will be good is NEO at least trying to beat those deliveries they announced back in, of course, Q1 of 2023, which personally I still think it's possible, because NEO, ladies and gents, right now in March, in fact from today, we are going to start to see NEO delivering some of their 2024 models to the consumers that have placed their orders. They will be getting the 2024 ET5 Touring, ET5 ES6, which is something that is pretty good. We know that cars like the ET7, we don't know yet when NEO will be starting to deploy or sell or deliver the 2024 model, but we know that all the other cars by April, May, all the other 7 models will be delivered to those that order or place an order to get those cars. But what we know is that ET5 Touring, I think with the EL6 and EC6 are now or will be available immediately now in March to those consumers that buy or that place their orders, which is something that is pretty good. It is for this reason that I believe that, ladies and gents, in terms of deliveries, we might see deliveries being boosted by this, because though there is not much physically that NEO is changing on these vehicles, but software wise there are so much, or there's just so much that we can expect from these 2024 vehicles models, which is something that is pretty good, I suppose. Yes, there are other things like physical, like soft headrests, which they are introducing in some of the models, but majority of the upgrades are software based, which is something that is pretty amazing. So Deutsche Bank is seeing delivery guidance of around or in the mid 20,000, which is something that shows you that, yeah, it therefore means that in March we are not to expect many deliveries, which is something that of course it is not that good. But I wonder, because this article by Deutsche Bank, or this of course report by Deutsche Bank, came out before NEO announced their February deliveries yesterday, which I wonder how many vehicles they are going to project after knowing that yesterday NEO delivered over 8,100 deliveries. I mean, personally, many people were not expecting those kind of deliveries, which to get to see that NEO managed to produce that, it is something that is pretty good, or it was pretty good. And therefore, if Deutsche Bank is saying that they see 25,000, it would therefore mean that the kind of deliveries they see the NEO delivering, the very same deliveries that they delivered in February, which personally I think it's not possible, because we won't be having any holidays. It will be business as usual, and therefore it is for that reason that I also believe that, ladies and gents, we are going to see NEO delivering some good deliveries, which will result in them getting to the kind of deliveries they reported last year, or even beat them. I hope to see a beating when we look into the 2023 deliveries. Now, with these mid-20s, or with these kind of deliveries that Deutsche Bank is projecting for Q1, they therefore also seeing the gross margins for Q1 also coming down sharply, which is something that is not good, or won't be good, because I mean, we're just going to head to double digit right now. We don't want to see NEO going back to the 1%, 1.5%, because that will really deteriorate the stock further, or the stock price further, which is something that we don't want to see, of course. So we hope NEO can do better, and not, at least, even if we know that the gross margins will be impacted by the low sales or by the low deliveries, at least NEO must fight that we don't get to the 1%, 1.5%, like what we saw, of course, last year, of which I think it's possible, and I would like to see that. Otherwise, with all that, guys, I just thought I'd just give you this quick update. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. And once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell, so that at least to get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. Otherwise, that's all from me, and I wish you nothing but the best in your stock market investing journey, and God bless you all.